I call the meeting of October 2nd, 2019 of the Apache Junction Parks and Recreation Commission to order at 6:02 p.m. May we have a roll call, Mary, at this time?
Yes. Vice Chairman Jesse Gage.
Here.
Commissioner Walker Waldy is excused, and Commissioner Judy Boy are excused. Commissioner Heather Moeller.
Here.
Commissioner Luciano Buzin.
Yeah.
Commissioner Frank Shanebeck.
Here.
And Chairman Wayne Standage.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Will you all rise with me to say a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. All right. Acceptance of the agenda. Has everyone received and reviewed the agenda for tonight's meeting?
Yep. Yes, sir.
May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, you've got that, Luciano, and then Frank. Okay.
Everybody in favor?
Everybody in favor, say
No.
aye.
Aye.
Oh, you
No,
gotta
no,
say
no,
that.
no. I'm going to do roll call. I was going to say, everybody in favor, I'm going to do roll call. Chairman Wayne Standage.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jesse Gage.
Yes.
Chairman, Commissioner Boy is not here. Heather Moeller
Yes.
and Commissioner Buzin
Yes.
and Commissioner Shanebeck.
Yes.
Okay, our agenda is approved.
Okay. Acceptance of minutes of September 4th, 2019 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of September 4th as
I'll
presented?
make a motion to accept the meetings to December 4th.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second.
We've got a first and a second. Luciano and Heather.
Okay.
And can we have a roll call now then?
Yes. Commissioner Frank Shanebeck,
Yes.
Chairman Wayne Standage,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Waldy is not present. Commissioner Bory is not present. Commissioner Moeller
Yes.
and Commissioner Buzin.
Yes.
All in favor, it passed. Not all in favor, 2-4, 2 against, 2 not here, and 5-4. Sorry. I'll get it right.
I must be rubbing off on you, Mary.
No.
Okay, our next item is Parks and Recreation Director's Report, and I will turn that over to our director, Liz Langenbach.
Thank you. Just want to report on a few quick things. I wanted to let everybody know I'd shared last time that Nick Blake, our park superintendent, he is officially retired now. His last day was actually Monday. And the council did a nice job of just recognizing him briefly. He is not up for another council meeting to come and get a lot of recognition. Nick is going to be staying on kind of in an on-call consultant capacity to help with some projects that he's in the middle of working on for us. So we worked all that out before he left. So he'll still be around for our Make a Difference Day, still helping, off and on with the dog park and some of the areas that he has the most experience in, and be able to help contribute a little bit. So you'll still get to see him around a little bit. Nick Blake served for us for 26 years and just definitely has had a mark on every single facility we have here in the city, and we're really, really proud. Yesterday was my horrible freak out moment of every little thing that I usually would say, oh, Nick, or give this to Nick. It was all those things where he's not there. So he's done many amazing things, and I definitely, we will miss him on an everyday basis, but we're happy to have him for any time that we do over the next year. That is we are working on the structure of the Parks Division, and so that was kind of the first piece. We also just finalized the recruitment and then appointment of Matt King to our park supervisor position. So I think I mentioned before, we are leaving the park superintendent position unfilled, probably for the next couple of years, maybe several years. A large portion of Nick's job was park development, certainly ran the maintenance division and the park ranger division. But right now, while we don't have a lot of park projects, we did take a look at his position, and right now we put aside a little bit of that money in the budget this year for us to have a consultant, which could be Nick in some cases, and it might be other services in other cases, but to start bringing back up our field staff to a level that was pre-recession year levels. So I think we've done a great job. Our council has been very generous and little by little getting us another person here and there as we grew Flatiron and all of those. But we're still, pretty low as far, we have never been able to fully get back staff. And so we're gonna focus this time on our field staff, looking to kind of use that higher level management position to be able to offer a couple of promotional opportunities, bringing up another park supervisor to help share the responsibilities in the city. Matt King was our crew lead, so we'll be abolishing that position, and we'll have 2 park supervisors that will help to take on a little bit of Nick's personnel and regular daily responsibilities and help me. And then they'll be able to focus on 2 halves of the city, which will be that's back to the way that we used to be. So pre-recession, we had 2 park supervisors. They were able to really work and be able to effectively manage half of the city and all of our needs very well. We have grown tremendously in park responsibilities, and so we're very excited about that change. Matt King has worked for us for he's over his 20-year mark now, but he's been moving up the ranks for many, many years, and so we're excited to have him on in a new capacity. And then we're going to be able to bring on, to replace his position with a parks worker, senior parks worker, and then have another senior parks worker added to the team. So our supervisors work a lot in the field. They certainly have a little bit of time behind the desk, but they're definitely kind of a hand in hand, and we'll be able to get more boots on the ground out in the field, and we think that's a good start. We're not going to get rid of our park superintendent position altogether. We'll assess it in a couple of years and determine if some of that growth south of 60 happens. We might have a lot more projects on our plate. We might determine that that's the need. But we think that it's a good opportunity to kind of look at our structure and see what makes the most sense. So that's what's happening in the park side. We'll be additionally looking at the recreation and administrative side, because by losing Nick, it is down to Jamie Sullivan, who will be in charge of recreation still, and myself. And so looking to find some of those things to take some of that load of some of the administrative stuff, so setting policies and procedures and some other things with a little bit lower level of a position. So again, looking at promotional opportunities, so that's a little small change. It's not adding any new bodies or anything like that. So we just want to kind of bring you up to speed on that. That's probably is a process that it will not be complete until probably close to the end of the fiscal year. Each little step has to happen before the next step happens, and we'll keep you up to date. And I think in the spring, in some of our meetings, we'll definitely be bringing some of those staff here so that you can kind of put a face with a name and see who our people are. So as everybody is well aware, we had many issues with the storm that passed. I know that most of the radar is talking about 3-inch and 3.5-inch or whatever in our main area, but we have a lot of gauges up over in McKellips and all that area that is just north of Prospector Park, and they're telling us it's more like 6 inches, which is very easily understood. We had major damage at Prospector Park, and our crews really kind of got behind on other everyday stuff, because just in order to get the park back opened up and back opened with our fields was about a week's worth of major repairs. So all of our ball fields, all the infield mix literally cut and, pushed into all of our areas. There was mounds and mounds of sediment all throughout the park. There are some areas that are a little bit of challenging areas whenever it rains, just because it goes so fast. But we have not seen anything like this in, I think 5 years ago, maybe we had something close, but Prospector Park has never been in this kind of a situation. Water was running down from our top fields 3 and 4, and then we sloped down and stepped down into field 1 and 2 in our restroom and concession building. The concession was probably a knee-deep, high water surrounding it. And so it really dug into our backstops and a lot of that stuff. So just really kudos to our parks team. They were out there trying to get everything playable and ready to go as soon as possible for residents. In addition, lending a hand to Public Works. So we have a lot of guys with CDLs and a lot of the same equipment, so helping to clear off roads. I think, this is our parks report, but our Public Works team has just done, I think, a phenomenal job of triaging all the roads. I know that everybody doesn't have everything they'd like their road to look like yet, but kind of addressing the most safety-sensitive areas and then working their way. Street sweeping is still a little ways down the road as they try to finish up. So kind of brings me yes.
When that water came down, it just really, did it take out the infield area, all the base?
So
area?
it didn't take it out. What it really did was it just washed so much of the topsoil down and piled it up. So actually, when you went out there, it looked like a big marble. It looked like a big marble infield. So it had infield mixed in with the lower dirt and clay and all that kind of stuff. So, it looked pretty amazing. There was so much debris and limbs all along our fencing. So our court workers as well, I think just definitely want to mention that. So we have our community service workers that work with the judge and that team. They've been instrumental in getting the park back in working order. It definitely did, though, impact many things that are going to be happening over the next couple of months. So kind of moves me into Make a Difference Day, which the Apache Trail median was was looking beautiful. And I think I shared maybe the last meeting that just amazed at the work that Public Works has done there. And so some of the areas, so on the east side, that is Idaho to Rennick, that we're going to be addressing on Make a Difference Day. That area has a lot of curbs still and gutters, so the water was able to run down the street like it should at this moment in time, and then had cutouts right into the river rock. And so that area was fairly okay. There's a few little erosion areas that'll be easy to fix. But the area on the west side of the trail, Meridian up to about where Superstition Harley is, that portion really just destroyed a lot of the mounding that was done. Washed a ton of sediment then into the riprap that's down in there, and so Public Works will have to be working on how to try to sift through some of that and bring that river rock back up. A couple things I want to point out that are super important for you guys to know as you hear things in the community. So we're in the middle of building that. I heard plenty of people saying, they don't know where to put things, or they don't know where it needs to go. Well, there's very little erosion control when you don't have we don't have the DG up on the top layers to kind of help. We don't have any plants. Plants help tremendously with erosion control. Our Public Works Director and one of the most positive people that I know, I think I felt very sad for him and all the work that they had done, but he was very positive, and at least now we know where some of the good cut-ins, that we want to add a couple more cut-ins so that way we can direct water flow the way that we need to. But I think I just want to remind people that it's not done and it's not complete. And so just really unfortunate, because we're going to have to figure out a way to get all of that repaired prior to the end of the month while we have all these other things going on. But we'll be working on that. And so Make a Difference Day is October 26th, and that is a major park project. I should say it's the Community Development Corporation spearheaded wanting to have a big Make a Difference Day each year. They're still going to do some neighborhood cleanups, and they have some other opportunities for different ways for the community to get involved. But the way that we're involved is through the Apache Trail Median Planting Project, We're well on our way to raising most of the funds that we had determined we needed for the small plants. We have another agency that is providing all the trees that we're doing in those two areas I just described. And so it'll be a big planting project on that day. And the Community Development Corporation and Fox Young in our Revenue Development Office have put out the word. We have a lot of churches and a lot of other groups helping. We're anticipating about 80 volunteers. So even if, and I think the numbers are like 100, we think 80 of them, maybe 70 will really show up, and that's still plenty for the projects that we have going on. So Apache Trail Median is one project. The other project that we have going is Think Desert. So at Flatiron Park, on the north end, adjacent to the wash, was Think Desert. I think about almost 2 years now. J2 Engineering and our Youth Advisory Council and a couple of other youth groups had put in the trails that are there for our botanical walk and moved a bunch of gravel, and our hydro seeding of all of our native seed mix finally took off after the spring's rain. It had been dormant for 2 years. We were very worried that they had given us anything. And it all bloomed and looked great in spring. In the summer, it all dies. That's the way desert plants look for a little while. So Think Desert is the second part of our Make a Difference Day projects. We are bringing in more plants to put in, so there's a little bit more color of native plants that won't require irrigation, as well as planting some native trees so that there'll be a lot more shade over in that area. We have some cement benches that are going in that the community will be able to help a little bit with. We're doing a little art project starting on the back wall of Flatiron. It's very long. It kind of goes from Think Desert all the way down to the restrooms, to the other entrance of the park. Very long, plain brown wall. A lot of community members have talked about having art displayed on it, and we do have our staff, Josh Underwood, who's one of our staff members. He did the artwork across the street at TPG that is beautiful. So he's doing a recreation project there where we'll be involving some of our youth, and he's designing a small thing there that ties into Think Desert and to a lot of things. So we're excited about that. That's also happening a little bit on Make a Difference Day. So those are the Make a Difference Day projects, and I just want to invite you that if you want to come out to visit or to participate, you're welcome to. If you know of anybody else in the community, we would love to have you. It's like an 8 a.m. to noon type of time frame. I think we'll get out of there probably really 11:30. People will trickle away. So any amount of time that people want to give, it'll be a great day. So, and it's October 26th. I will send out a reminder to everybody just so that you'll have it if you're interested. Same day as our Halloween carnival. So in the morning, all of our parks folks are working, and part of them will stay and get things ready for Halloween carnival, and then our rec staff it's pretty much all hands on deck this year for the Halloween carnival, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit.
Now, may I ask, the Halloween carnival is held at Flatiron
Yes.
now
Yep.
instead of out at Prospector?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that because I have a few updates on Halloween carnival too. The last thing I wanted to share about facilities update is the Flatiron grass. I just wanted to bring to your attention, we're sharing with council as well in their weekly report. We are not overseeding this year, so unfortunately, due to the weather and due to a lot of the constraints, all of our fields are on a kind of, we have to get overseeding in at a certain time for events to happen that are already scheduled. So it's always a challenge. We try to schedule events out so that we have a good 3 to 4 weeks of overseeding time for the grass to take. But this rainstorm really hurt us. It set us back quite a bit. It came at a really inopportune time, and there's no way to push back some of the events that are already scheduled out there. And so this will be a good pilot year to, we would prefer not to overseed every single year. It's good to do it most years and then try to rest a little bit. So this will be a good pilot year to see what that looks like. We do have a plan to make sure that it's a very well manicured overseed process. So we'll stay green, we'll probably stay green all the way through December with our current grass, and then all of that will die off until summer grass comes in, probably around the early March timeframe. So January and February might be pretty yellow, but it will be mowed and weeded properly, so that way it still looks fine, and it still is something that, and those events that are early on, you know, we do have some events in January, February, but a lot of them revolve around the ramadas and booths and some different things like that, so we'll be raring to go by Blues and Brews Festival. But if you see that happen, don't think we just suddenly didn't know how to water the grass or didn't know how to take care of it. It'll be a good year for us to test out, but just know that that's a really common thing, and we'll still be able to pick up with overseeding again next year and be in a good place. So we are adjusting our event schedule. So the challenge is that everybody wants to do events in the cool times of the year, and that's October to April. Prime overseeding time is October. So we have always pushed it a little bit at that park. We start overseeding in mid-September. When the earliest golf course starts overseeding, that's when we start overseeding that facility. We are going to be adjusting some of our events and just biting the bullet that only the events that don't need to be on the grass will be able to be there. For example, our running series, some of the things where we meet in the ramada, but we don't have to be on the grass. Just an important thing that, again, I want you guys to know. We'll definitely be sharing that as people ask, but I don't think anybody's really going to notice very much of a difference except for kind of maybe that January, mid-February timeframe.
We can just blame it on Nick Blake.
That's right. Nick's not here. Dave did offer to paint. There is paint for grass that you can use, but it would require quite a bit, so we won't be doing that. Any questions on facilities before I move on to programs?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Any questions, guys?
No question.
I do have a question. For all that water that was in the concession stand, did that do a lot of damage to anything?
So luckily we'd use it more on a temporary basis, and so most of the equipment is raised up enough, and so it really didn't do too much terrible damage, and it did, you know, we were able to get it out of there within a couple of hours of it all happening. Same as and the restrooms are all cement at the bottom, so it wasn't standing long enough to do a lot of wood damage or anything like that, so that was really good. There was a lot of sediment in there that had to be blown out and taken out of there, though. So yeah.
You guys were on it. Good job. Thanks.
That's right. Okay. Move on to the program update.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just wanted to share a major event that happened a couple weeks ago. So our Mad Scientist event, we had record numbers this year. So 350 people came out. That event has had one other time a little bit over 300, and so we're very happy with the turnout. That event is just such a cool event at the Multi-Gen Center. They have probably 50 or 60, maybe more, science demonstrations and science projects. So the staff put together a ton of science projects, and then kids come in and they can do demonstrations. Our Youth Advisory Council always sponsors one room where they do things that they're educating youth on. But a super huge event, very happy with that turnout. Kind of coming up here in the near future, as we were talking about, Halloween Carnival is kind of our next major. I take it back. Before Halloween Carnival is the Mud Run. That one is October 19th, and a huge event. Our park staff really have their work cut out for them in October because we're doing cleanup right now. We got to get all of the overseeding in, and in the meantime, they're also going to be out cutting out and getting the Mud Run course ready for that event. So that's another one that we typically see about 300 people at, and great, family friendly. It's $10 a person. There's just no 5K or anything like that out there that you can do for $10. And so it's very affordable for our families. And then the Halloween Carnival is October 26th, that evening. We have our trunk or treat is in partnership with the business community. Lost Dutchman sponsors that event, and they get all the businesses to do trunks of candy, and the kids go and do their trick-or-treating down North Apache Trail there. So bigger and better even than last year, and we had record numbers last year. So I think this is our third year at Flatiron. It might be however many years Flatiron has been there.
Yeah.
I think that makes this one the third, but I start to lose count. Wellness event is coming up in November. That's a big event. FOTS, Festival of the Superstitions, is a city-sponsored event with the chamber that will be held down at Flatiron Park. They are doing a one-day event this year. It's only going to be on Saturday, November 9th. Veterans Day Parade will be on Veterans Day. That is the way that the Vets Associations have always, they take great pride in having it on the 11th. So that'll be during the week. That's Monday. So that'll be down, doesn't really affect the park too much other than there'll be a lot of parking all throughout town on that day. And then that brings us into holiday event, first Saturday of December. And so really busy with a lot of stuff going on, but this is a great time of year. We have something going on down at the park every weekend, starting this weekend until holiday event now. So that's pretty exciting. I did want to just remind everybody, I shared this last time, and I ran into a few little technical difficulties, but if you go to ajcity.net/parks, let's see if I can do it. It will take you right back to this page, but so that way you know the easy way to get here. And then the calendar is on the side. I would definitely, if you want to know what's going on or you're not sure, this is a great place. Only really our major special events are listed on here. We don't put every single program, that is in the brochure. But you can kind of see the featured events on one side, some of the bigger stuff, and then it kind of gives a good rundown of what's going on. So I just want to remind everybody we're really trying hard to make sure that there's a one-stop place. We have a lot of other resources, you know, Facebook pages and all kinds of other good stuff to share information, but all of our major events should also be showing up on the city calendar. And then that concludes my director's report.
Okay, any questions? No? Jesse? I look both ways, you know. Okay, Liz, then we'll move to our next item, which is old business.
Okay.
And again, back to you.
Okay. Oh, nice. I didn't notice this. It's like all of the writing is flip-flopped, but that's okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of,
It's really weird because that is the way it is. Okay. So just wanted to give a couple little updates. We talked about the dog park last time. Last night, council voted unanimously after our presentation at the work session to award contract to J2 Design for continuing their design work on this park. So we will start immediately this week working with J2 to begin the design process. So this is our conceptual design that everybody, so think of this like the Flatiron Park design that we all had in front of us when we decided that this is what we were going with. So this is what everybody selected. Now it'll just be time for the fine tuning. So the next steps are all of their work to be working on the engineering of the drainage. So, and speaking of stormwater stuff, I wanted to save that till now. I have never in all my life seen the entire drainage area completely look like one lake. It's usually two areas. It's usually the big basin stays, this bigger one right here usually stays full a little bit longer. It is never drained properly. We've already talked that to death. The contract with J2 Design is approximately $56,000, $57,000. Plus a contingency in case we come across something that we weren't prepared for. I don't anticipate that, but we typically, staff put that in just in case. I know there are a lot of questions about that. Seems like a lot of money, and it certainly is. It is a lot of money. But this is potentially an $800,000 project. You know, we shared that as we all kicked it around. You know, our 2015 numbers were $650,000. I think we're being very conservative when we think that it could be an $800,000 project. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is it could be more than that, it could be less. And so $57,000 for design and construction documents. Typically, we usually budget about 10% of any estimated project is going, you're going to spend 10% on the design. And their proposal, whenever we sat down to negotiate, came in at about 7.1%. So we were very happy with that. Nick Blake was very involved in every single detail of the scoping and all of that, and he will still be involved in helping to consult and get us feeling comfortable about making sure that we stay on track. But we've all worked with Dean and Kurt with J2 Design for many, many projects. And so, again, just want to reiterate, there's a couple of things that we talked about at council. State law requires that professional service agreements for these types of services are done by request for qualifications. They're interviewed, you develop a short list, and it's not based on price until you go to your short list. So back several years ago, Jeff Bell and Nick Blake we had a request for qualifications of all design firms. 16 firms applied and their proposals were reviewed. It was narrowed down to 6 that were interviewed by city staff, and 3 were selected. J2 is the top one, so then they rank them in order of how they scored. And J2 is first. And so when you see that they're one of our primary companies that we use, it's because they are first on the list. And so the way that works is we go to the first name on the list, try to negotiate a price. You sit down, say what it is that you want, and based on our experience and based on their experience and what we're looking for, we determine if that's a reasonable price. If you're not happy with the price and you can't negotiate any farther, then you go to the second name on the list. And so we've always been very fortunate. And for many reasons, J2 has worked very hard to, give us a lot for our money. And so we're very excited to start working with them again. They will be involved in coming to a meeting to share, some of the final things. The different thing about this project versus Flatiron is that there's not buildings, there's not a lot of other things. There's it's going to be grass and fencing and DG. I mean, it's like it's more about where all that stuff ends up. So this is kind of what we're starting with. I will tell you, I shared this at the last meeting, I believe, that as you look at the flow, so engineering of the drainage is first and foremost, and so all of they're pulling together all of that data, and they will start engineering the drainage. And once the drainage is finalized of what are all the different ways that it can flow and where we want it to go, then they'll start working on making sure that this concept is going to work. So the big grass might move farther over here. The part that we're going to have a little bit more say on is it's actually a pretty big area out there. And we thought we could only get 2 spaces out of there. We're going to be able to get more than just 2 spaces. I think we'll be talking about, is it portable space? Do we want to have portable fencing inside? So that way we can cut one of these areas in half when we want to overseed. We had Toonie House from Paws for Life. She works with, she has a nonprofit here in our community that trains dogs, trains service dogs, works in a lot of that setting. We've also worked with Paws for Claws staff to have them come down and look at it. They will be giving some ideas and recommendations. A couple things that they've talked about that I wanted to share with you is that some of the ways to keep, so the feces on the grass is obviously, even though owners are supposed to clean up after themselves and all of that, that can be problematic, but there's a lot of ways to train our participants, to train our citizens to have designated poop areas. So like here in more of these gravel areas where it's not impacting grass, they just had a whole plethora of ideas. So real aggressive dogs, we don't really want them by any other dogs, not big dogs, not little dogs, but they feel very strongly that there's plenty of room out here to have a smaller area that is just for aggressive dogs to start, because they might want to be coming out to get socialized, but we need to have a process for that happening that is safe for everybody else. So I think most of this cement, so when we talked with Dean to keep it at our $800,000 amount, we're probably not going to be putting in cement. We're probably going to be doing DG or some other type of material initially. We did ask that they look at some alternate, kind of like we did with Flatiron. There'll be some things that we can add that if we have enough money, we'll do it immediately. If we don't have enough money, we'll be able to raise that money and add it later. Lighting is one of those that we've talked about. We are, this is going to be a pilot site is probably the wrong idea because that's what we're going to be using, but our first park that has all solar lighting. And so we've talked with several companies over the years, and we had one come out and take a look at this, and we'll be visiting some of those sites. I will let you know when we go, and you're welcome to go with us and check it out. But one of the nice things about solar lighting, not only is it more cost efficient later for maintenance, obviously, and electricity costs, but we found out that it's actually almost equal in price to install, because this site, while it does have electricity, we're going to have to bring in a lot more service power from SRP. So there's a lot of startup costs that offset the little bit higher cost of the solar system. The other nice thing about that is that we can put in bases, the bottom base of those lights, and if we don't have, if we're short 100,000 or 80,000 or whatever that ends up being, the park might not have lights the first year. And I think as we talked with community members, we said that lights are great. We want this park to be able to be utilized as much as we can. But if the first year there wasn't light, we just want to have a dog park. We want to have a place where people can come dawn to dusk if that's what it has to be the first year, but we want to get it going. We don't want to hold off waiting for every dime if we have part of it. We have about $400,000 in our development fee fund right now, and we have we have several housing developments that are in the works right now. So we anticipate that growing. We've started talking with our revenue development team, so we've got several grants that are in the works. Many of them can't be applied for until we get our 60% design estimates that Dean and them will be doing for us, so, around December-ish, January. Corporate partnership, we're going to do that just like we did with Flatiron Park, so we'll have a sell sheet of what people can pay and what they would get out of that if they wanted to be a corporate partner. So some of those are like agencies like Rotary or, Arizona Water invested last time. There's opportunities for a lot of folks.
Grants, is that being done with Heather Patel?
Correct, yes. So Heather Patel is our grants coordinator, and we researched all 15 of the ones that we know are for dog parks, and unfortunately, as we had shared before, they're in the $5,000 to $25,000 range. There's only about 4 or 5 that are for construction. Many of them are for services, so they're or equipment. So they'll still be very viable grants for us as we go and as we look at programming, because we will program this site as well with dog obedience classes, partnering with some of those same agencies like Paws and Claws and Paws for Life to offer programs that people can pay for, that some of that money goes to the instructor and some of that money goes to the city so that we can have a small revenue stream there moving forward.
How does the county interaction gone?
Thank you for asking about that. I forgot about that part. So we've met with them several times. Just met with Kent Taylor, who is the Parks and Open Space Director for the county, and walked the site. We're working on updating our IGA right now. So we have an existing IGA for this, just to kind of refresh our memory. I know we've been talking about it, but it's been a while. We have an existing IGA. This is part of their recreation and public purpose patent. So that's even better than our our recreation and public purpose lease, because they don't ever have to renew it. It's pretty much there as long as they continue to only have their public purpose, their buildings for public services and recreational use. And this dog park fits right into the recreational use. Believe it or not, that area was considered a green space for an open space. It was considered, parkland. It was vegetated. We had plants and trees, and we maintain that area. So it's really more about updating our IGA. So we have an existing agreement that we'll be working on updating over these next couple of months, so that way we can formalize who's responsible for what. We will be responsible for pretty much everything, but working closely with them to make sure that parking and noise, all those things are done in a way that everybody's comfortable. And they've been super supportive. So Kent's really excited. It's another park in their county, and so that they don't have to maintain or take care of either. So far it's been nothing but great. The other thing is, and I think this was what I was getting at also with the amount of money, $57,000, but don't look at that design or construction, or the $800,000 for, it's not just a dog park, not that that's not worthy in itself, but it's also the answer to a major drainage challenge that the city has. And so we're really getting 2 for 1 with this project. As you can see, if you drove by it today, it's still full, maybe it's a third full of water now. But it's been over a week, and there are regulations of how those should drain. And so it will be engineered to be able to drain properly in the future, and that is a big chunk of that money, and I just think people need to remember that.
Oh, it takes care of an eyesore, too.
Absolutely. Although it was beautiful, when it was completely full, I was kind of thinking, oh, I wish it was going to be a lake, a little man-made lake, because it's really pretty.
You could go out and do kayak classes.
And all these trees, we talked about this before, but every tree that can be salvaged is planned to be salvaged. So the plan is to keep all the trees that are already there and build around it, the best to our ability. Some might have to be, if they can be saved and held on to until they can be replanted, there might be some of those. And then we'll be bringing in more trees, but there's a ton of shade there. I mean, it's going to be such an amazing spot.
When it does drain properly, where's that water going? Does that run down the wash next to Flatiron Park?
So, well, actually, what's supposed to happen is that it's supposed to be a detention basin. And so, what's supposed to happen is that it would fill up one basin, start to go through the one drain, and gradually move that water. So, fill up enough, but then gradually send it on its way. I don't know that it goes to Flatiron, but it might. I'd have to see the connection of where this is at.
It goes across Idaho.
Yeah, it must. I mean, that has to be logically the location that it goes.
Crossing roughly right where Genesis project is now located.
Yeah, probably not coming down
By that
North
Shell
Apache Trail,
station.
but sooner.
The Shell station
Yeah.
is right there.
Oh, yeah. So, unfortunately, the drainage is higher than it does not drain enough. So it drains to a certain point properly, and then it just sits there because it can't, the water's too low for the drain. Well, or the drain is too high, I don't know which one it is. Luckily, engineers will be looking at that, people who know a little bit more. So, and then our city will obviously have proper review of all of that, and
Send Sam out there.
yeah. Been working very hard on that over the years. Wanted to mention that this channel, so the gray part is technically, it'll end up being riprap or some kind of heavier material, because that's where the water's really supposed to drain. So in a small rain, we don't want it to rush through our grass. We want it to go through the riprap, to go through a channel and drain out. So on a regular day, that's how it would work. When we get a big rain, then it will spill into the grass and it will fill up, but it will have a channel. One of the things that we were talking about with J2 in our initial proposal meeting was that Dean thinks that we can get that channel to come like more down Superstition and around the park versus right through the middle, and that might cut some costs. So right now we have to build ramps and ADA accessibility over little mini bridges over that riprap in order for it to be accessible. And also so that just so that it's an easy path. It'd be nice not to have to do that. So they are looking at every opportunity to not have to disturb the grass and in our path to the grass as possible. The fence is a 5-foot fence, but we've heard lots of comments from both citizens when we've met with them, when we took them out, as well as recently with Tooney House and others, that these roads are a little bit busier than the average road, and so having a little bit of screening so that is very distracting to dogs. They see that and they want to get out to it, or they will have no problem, some of them climbing a chain link fence. So really looking at what is the type of fencing that we're using. So Dean they will be researching many different types, and so that way we can kind of look and see what is going to be best for us. The city added a new art council and a ordinance that every construction project that is over a certain amount of square footage and in certain categories contributes a percentage of their project has to go towards art. So whether it's art in your own project or they give that money to the city to put into a future project. So this site is part of those rules, and we'll have some type of art. It might be a fountain, and it might be, so we'll find something that is probably as meaningful to the park, and it might be a great way of, I think we talked about last time about our corporate sponsorships with having something on the fencing that could recognize corporate partners, and they, are technically paying for a panel of fence. There's a lot of neat things that I think Dean and them are going to be working on, and we'll be able to bring those back to you once they share.
Well,
Yes.
could we contact our Kachina artist to see if he'd like to contribute something to the dog park?
Yeah, he might. Yeah, that's not a bad idea at all. Yeah, I like that. Write that down real quick. I was thinking, so there's one other thing that they were looking at. I'm trying to, looking at ways to bring in water. So there's also a lot of, rules stuff that we'll be looking at. You guys will be kind of we'll be looking at a lot of those things as we get towards the design. But right now, the design is really just trying to figure out what we want it to be like and what do we want to make sure is in there. There is not a shade like a building structure. That was in our original estimates, but we've asked for that to be an alternate. So again, if there's a way to put a building, and when I say building, like a ramada, if there's a way to add that, we will, but it'll be an alternate that can be, the pad would be in place, and it's an alternate that could be added later if funds weren't 100%, Really, it's the ramada and the lighting and maybe some cement that are things that you can't, that you could wait to do, and everything else we really have to have the funds for. So please keep in mind that the design and the construction helps us to get that grant funding and all those other things, but it might mean if we don't have all the funds, we won't be going out for bid until we have what we feel is the appropriate amount to get at least the base package done. And then it has to come in under bid.
Could you phase this as like a stage 1 and a stage 2?
Yes, absolutely. So that's kind of what I was talking about. So stage or adding it as an alternate. The lights can be considered kind of like a phase 2 is adding in the lights and adding in more cement that's a little bit more permanent and a little less maintenance than DG. So some of those things definitely would be considered part of phase 2. Yep. I think that will probably be the approach whenever we look at construction documents. So in the construction document world, it's an alternate that we're asking for some plans for, and then, but for us, as far as completion and everything, those would be which phase are we going to do it in. So absolutely. Other things that, and after this point, it'll go to Dean. We'll be sharing with him all the ideas from Paws and Claws and other folks that I just mentioned. Can they incorporate some of those things? And then they'll be sharing that back. We'll get so we're doing a concept that they will basically be making sure that the concept is accurate, another drawing, and then a 60% and a 90% plans, and where we'll get to review it at each of those stages. So. Any other questions? I don't think there was anything else from last time that I didn't find out about.
Something I was just kind of noticing, there's going to be water fountain areas provided for the dogs.
Absolutely. So we'll definitely have some drinking fountains with some type of water feature for dogs. Again, there's a lot of debate on what's most sanitary, what should be done, what shouldn't. And so I think we'll spend a little bit of time just looking into that before we pick the one thing. But I think in the next couple of months, we'll be kind of finalizing some of that. So absolutely. The doggy bag stations will be throughout, so that way people will have easy access and no excuses. So, anything else?
I have a question.
Okay.
Talking about the cement walkways. I would eliminate the cement walkway, but I put stone blocks, because if the cement and my crack and my break, you have to do a lot of repairs. The other one is very little repair. You put a little bit of sand underneath, and I think it could be cheaper.
Right, and it might be a little more forgiving than sidewalks. So we'll definitely have him take a look at that, and I think that's another great idea. Okay, thank you. Anything else for now?
That's good.
Okay,
For now.
all right.
Maybe next meeting.
Yes. Are you ready for me on the next one, or are you making notes?
I'm ready for
Okay.
you. Are you guys ready?
Ready?
Yeah.
All right,
You got
so
a ready crew here.
General Plan 2020, I just wanted to make sure that you guys get a final copy. I think we've talked about this a little bit. I want to just remind everybody that it's a much more general, it's a plan to plan. So our element, we moved up to Chapter 2. I'm very excited about that. We used to be Chapter 9. So moving up in our importance in the general plan for the city. Just wanted to mention on a few, I did share this with you prior to the meeting, and hopefully you guys got a chance to look at it, but wanted to share a few of the things, just reminding everybody that Parks and Recreation funding, it's general fund dollars, plus fees, any kinds of grants and gifts. Bonds could be something in the future. We don't have one happening right now, but bonds are loans we take out and that the taxpayers end up paying off. So that's how the MGC was built and many things like that. We don't have any of that right here on the current horizon.
As we talk about maybe acquiring the Prospector Park or the rodeo grounds area, would that be a bond issue, you think?
It could, depending on the amount of money and what we think that might be. So yeah, that might be one way of doing that. Remind me, we need to add that to a future agenda, to the next agenda, BLM. I forgot about our update.
EC know in time.
Yes, okay. All right.
You
Pretend
know,
I didn't say that.
Municipal Property Corporation.
Yes.
All the bonds have to go through them.
I'm going to kind of just skip over some of the kind of how we assess our benchmarks. Those are in there. And then existing parks, trails, and facilities. I think the important part here is that just reminding everybody this is all pretty much the same as what was in our Parks and Rec master plan. The concept of mini parks and their size, neighborhood parks. So the city complex park is considered a neighborhood park because of its size. And then community parks. So community parks are kind of the larger Prospector Park, Superstition Shadows, and then Silly Mountain Park. Silly Mountain feels like it's just that one thing, but it's a eventually it would be a much bigger thing. So those three are our main, our largest areas on, all three different sides of town, which I think is great. That really hasn't changed much other than, listing if there's something, new since this new plan. So pickleball is really the only thing that's been added to Prospector Park. The special use parks facilities, those are all pretty much the same except for Flatiron has been added since last time we did the general plan. And I just wanted to mention so at the time we put out this draft earlier in the summer for planning and zoning to take a look at, and as we were talking about it, the dog park wasn't final yet. So we didn't know we were even going to be moving forward at all. They will be adding that to, now that it has been approved, it'll be considered a special use. Actually, existing, we'll have to look and see if that's where they're still going to add it. Currently, it is listed in the goals and policies, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And so I think that's the only debate is where does that dog park actually fall? Is it still in the planning, or do we want to list it as an existing park? I think the more I talk about that, existing parks are existing, and so we had this big talk about it, but I think that can be massaged a little bit in the final wording.
Liz, what
Yes.
if you listed it as a park, but then put next to it in plannings?
Yeah, and it might be because it is an area, the retention area is an existing open space. We can list that it's the dog park, the future dog park.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that might very well be possible.
just a little wording.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of.
The next whole section is our lineal parks and open space, so Sheep Drive Trail, the multi-use trail system. As I said, so the city-county retention basin is here, and so we might just end up moving that out because it's not really part of the open space anymore. It'll be something different. Arroyo Verde, Renaissance Point, and then our city right-of-ways and highway landscape stuff. We do mention the regional parks still because they are part of our community. So, just our adjacency to state parks and national parks, that's all listed in there. That hasn't really changed at all since the last time. And then really it's the goals and policies. Really try to keep it as general as possible. So it really talks about that we want to consider development of future community assets. When we do our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, that'll be the time to really prioritize. So remember before we had the big implementation plan and it was our short-term, midterm, and long-term goals, that will be part of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, where we identify some, taking a lot more space and time to talk about what you guys are prioritizing. And so this main part is really just the general idea to get it into the city's general plan. I don't know if I wanted to mention anything else there. Just the main goals, it's developing a system of parks, trails, and open spaces for all of our residents and visitors. Goal 2, planning for the safety and maintenance, expansion of existing facilities, super important. Goal 3 is taking a leadership role in the community, so looking at other contributors to recreation and park services and being the lead to kind of help make sure that we're not duplicating services, that we are working together to partner. Goal 4 is really more about our marketing and promotion of the things that we have. And then goal 5 is utilizing multiple funding sources to fund development, to fund maintenance, to do all those things. We rely quite a bit on general fund revenues, which is a common thing, but really keep looking. And I think we've done a good job, but we can always do better of looking for more grants and more opportunities. Our fee structure, we will be looking at fee structure this year. That is one of the things we're right almost at our 5-year mark. And so we'll be bringing that in the spring to you guys and finalizing a lot of those things. So that's pretty much everything there, and just want to know if there's anything that you feel like, we've missed or that we haven't really talked about that won't be more encapsulated in our more specific master plan. And then that document will be ours. It won't be, so this is part of planning and zoning, is the general plan. And so they have taken a first look at it, and they really kind of did a quick look at everybody's element. But they'll be looking at it so this is just the wording. There'll be pictures and other things like that added probably in the December, January timeframe that it'll get looked at. Maybe it might be November, but I will send out to you when it's going to be discussed with planning and zoning. And that one isn't a joint meeting. They're looking at the whole plan as a whole, not individual chapters or anything like that.
Well, can you refresh my memory on kind of the purpose of this, putting it into the general plan? It gives you direction going forward for the next 10 years, basically, right?
Definitely, yes. Let me definitely backtrack a little bit so a city has to take to the voters and have them adopt the city's general plan every 10 years. And so the last time we did it was 2010. At that time, we had different leadership that felt that, let me say, even backtracking even more, the original general plan, it was a general plan that was very general, and we had our own standalone Parks and Rec master plan. 10 years ago when we did this, it was, we'll just fold the Parks and Rec master plan right into the general plan. It should that way you don't have two documents, you're not messing with it. That's definitely a way of thinking of it. So I think what most cities do and what the research that they did shows is that this is supposed to be your general guiding plan for the city, and that it is the plan to plan. So you're planning to plan all that other stuff. And so we have a much more reduced section in here right now, and so we will be looking at in the future. And so this will go to voters in 2020, and they'll adopt it for the next 10 years. And the purpose is definitely so that way we have a document that says what the city's overall vision is, taking into consideration all the needs. When we do our plan, we will use this document as kind of our guide, but then we will prioritize all of the individual needs that the community has. So as we went out to citizens, we're asking really general questions. So not, do you want a dog park or a pickleball courts, or that, so those don't show up on anything. So we really don't have that. So that's really what we'll be doing whenever it's time for the Parks and Rec master plan to dig down in ours. As the transportation is a standalone plan, the active transportation plan is a standalone plan that is referenced in the general plan. And moving forward, the general plan will reference our Parks and Recreation master plan as the detailed document of what our priorities in our community are. Does that answer your question, or is there still a little bit of a why?
I guess if something comes up that's not in the general plan, then general plan funds aren't allowed to be used for it, or there's problems with funding if it's, so I guess where I'm going is if this development to the south comes, and it could happen in the next 10 years, would we be, or should we add something for that as some, and I don't know how you do it, because that's.
Right. So I think that, so that is captured a little bit in the goals and policies. So in goal 1, it'll say to coordinate with developers to incorporate potential sites for parks, trails, open space, and other recreational facilities. And so again, keeping that general, I mean, I think that's a great question. I think we worried about it a lot as we talked about it, but those are the statements that kind of help us to say, generally, we are going to work with those folks and we will make sure that there's development of what is needed in that area. And when it's time, there will be, just like when we did Silly Mountain Park, there was a lot of community involvement to say what was going to go on there. So then once you start master planning what all that stuff, and again, so look at it as general plan, and then Parks and Rec master plan is still a pretty general idea for just Parks and Recreation. Master plan of one park is the meat and, is the detail of what we're going to be doing.
You guys have thought about it and.
Yeah, so I think
covered.
we have enough in here, but I don't think it hurts for me to ask again and make sure that they feel 100% confident, because I know even with the dog park, we got asked that question. Well, what planning document does it say? Well, we had always said development of community sponsored facilities such as off-leash dog parks, expansion. So we added a bunch of things that you guys mentioned this last time. So pickleball courts was not ever in it before. So just adding in the landfill park conversion, I think that was brought up at this meeting. That wasn't in our plan in the past, even though we knew it was on our horizon. So yeah,
Okay.
there is a little bit of that worry. So like if you look at the general plan now, you would want to look and see, but I think we left enough general things where we're able to kind of look at it. In addition, the city has a CIP, so the capital improvement plan. That is not a formally adopted document in most cities. In many cities it is. We just never went to that. But that helps to guide what are our priority projects. The dog park is on that. Everything that was in the old Parks and Rec master plan is on that CIP in order of our short-term, mid-term, and long-term previous goals. Okay?
Liz,
Yes.
also for that, as long as you've mentioned that you're planning to do something, if you come across the grant, that you can show, look, we've been planning on doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which shows that it's not, we just put in at the last minute.
Absolutely. So these are super critical for those grants. These are the things that we refer back to. Anything else on the master plan and where we're going with that?
Any questions? No
No.
questions? I don't have any more.
All right.
Let me move this off to here. Okay. Finished old business. New business, we have none listed, Liz. Correct. Okay, so now we're to call to the public. No public.
When you line up single file, we'll get you all.
We'll get to all of you one at a time, and you got 3 minutes. Okay, requests for future agenda items. Board members, do you have anything?
No.
Do you have anything coming up, Liz?
I do. want to make, and I know I'm going to say this out of order, so I apologize. We don't have a lot coming up for November, so we are looking at not doing the November meeting, and we'll talk about that more later. But if that happens, I would definitely like to make sure that we add to the agenda voting of our officers for the new year, as well as congratulations. Nobody listened. Congratulations to the renewal of Luciano and Heather. I was supposed to say that in my Parks and Rec Director's report.
Oh,
Yay.
you
So-
got reappointed, huh?
Oh, yeah.
On the
All
topic
right.
on the topic of items for the agenda, is that now that we have our members have been renewed for another 2 years, we will be, it is the time, for another 3 years, yes. Okay.
Me,
Don't
So-
change them yet.
So on that topic, we'll be looking at officers for our annual appointment. So please be thinking about, if there are things that you're interested in, and we will do our process with taking nominations and all of that wonderfulness. So I will make sure I send out to you just sort of a reminder of how that works. We will do nothing through email. You will not do any we'll do all of our nominations at the December meeting and all the voting at the December meeting for the new year. So if we could add that to the future agenda, please.
Complicated,
I know. Yes,
Yeah.
the reading of the script.
the reading of the script.
And then I'd also like to request that we add BLM back on, that I remember to put BLM back onto the list. We do have some updates. We'll have some more updates on that. We can't talk about them right now, so don't ask me, Chairman Standage. We'll add that to that
No,
meeting.
I'm
Okay. I was teasing you.
on a different project.
Okay.
not Taylor.
Excellent. So those are two. And then obviously we will have, we'll have some progress on Dog Park, and we'll be able to talk about that a little bit at the December meeting. I think that's all that I have that is for the agenda.
Can you email me the program before the meetings so I can have it, I can study, so I come over here, I know it all about.
So when you say the program, what do you mean?
I mean, whatever we're talking tonight. See, you give it to me, but if you email it,
So it did get emailed to you, but on which day? Was it last Friday or Monday? Friday?
I didn't
Monday?
receive it.
Monday.
I check the email every day, I didn't receive it, so anyhow, just in case.
So maybe we'll just double check your email, and that you don't have it going, maybe it's automatically going to spam or something like that, maybe getting caught up in your spam mail, because I saw it go out on Monday, and then I sent you guys a reminder about the general plan on Monday.
Yeah, I received
Okay,
all.
we'll double check. We'll have Mary touch base with you and double
All
check.
right, thank you.
Do you have any way to check your email here, like on your phone, or no?
No,
Okay, that's fine.
I don't have that
Okay.
kind of.
Hey, I have
Got it.
this
Program.
I know, that's,
desktop.
okay. All right, I don't
And
think
bring
anything
it up.
else.
Okay, no more items for future agenda, I take it? Folks? Nope. Liz?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, then at this, and we've had no call to the public. I adjourn the meeting at 7:09.